All right. Okay, so this is going to be our final week of doing trigonometry. If you notice, we have been on it for some time. And the reason for that, guys, is that trigonometry is really, it is not like when we start with functions, I mean, most years they test functions, but all years, right, they test trigonometry. And so we want to ensure that that is definitely something you're able to do. It's also in the one of the sections for your profile. So of course, you being able to master trigonometry definitely increases your chances of passing or getting on one, depending on how you are with the other topics. Definitely will make the difference. So we're gonna go ahead with a few questions that still focus on just the trig ratios, and then we're gonna go into the end of today's class as well as for Sunday, focusing on the sine and the cosine rules. So I found a few more questions, so I updated the booklet, right? So that we could just kind of cement that some more, as well as for those persons who are maybe just joining, they could catch a little piece of it, and then we'll get into it. Let me try to make this a little bigger. All right. So I'll give you guys, so I know some persons maybe didn't get to look at it. So I'll give you like 2 minutes just to look at it. And then we'll do it together. All right, but just give me a moment to read and take it in. Oh, for those persons who are new today, right? So if you look in the chat, you will see two devices. You see Matthews Tutors, and then you see another one with co-host beside it, which says answers. Both of those are my devices, right? So Matthews Tutors, that's the device I'm able to teach. However, answers, that's where you type all of your questions and your answers. That means that nobody has any reason to feel embarrassed. Just feel free to go ahead. Nobody will be seeing that you're asking the question. Nobody will see if you get it right. Nobody will see if you get it wrong. All right, so let me just make sure everybody's messaging is on answer. So everybody give me a yes in the chat. Ensure that your thing is not on everyone and not going to Matthew's tutors. Everybody just do a quick check. So just type yes in the chat and direct it to answers, right? So when you press chat, it will say send to, might be on everyone. So you're gonna look for answers and then click that. Hold on, let me stop sharing one moment. Yeah, so you see somebody's messaging over the other side. Guys, if you do that, I won't be able to see it. Okay, everybody hasn't responded. Okay, so let's go. So it says the diagram below not drawn to scale, right, shows a vertical. And remember that vertical goes up and down, horizontal, across. Right, so we're seeing the vertical tower. So that's that part that I have in blue, right, which is FT. And then there's an antenna on top. right, which they're saying is TW. Says there's a point P on the horizontal ground, so that's going across. They're telling us that PF, right, is 28. Meters. Oh, I just realized that, meaning this might look a little bit. Yeah, I might have to resend the document if it was not showing clearly. So we know that that's TF. As I said, PF is your 28. So it says copy and label the diagram, right? So copy means that you need to redraw it, right? So you don't just put it on what they have, right? You go ahead. All right, so we already established that this is a 28. It then says the angle of elevation of T and W from P. All right, so it's the angle of elevation of T. So if I had to split it up, from P, and the angle of elevation of W from P. Right, so remember I said when you see the word respectively, it's going in the order, right? So the T is for the 40, and the W is for the 54. So respectively means go in the order that it was just read, right? So the angle of elevation of T from P is 40 degrees, and the angle of elevation of W from P is 54 degrees. And remember, for your angle of elevation, you want to focus on the from points, right? So since both of them is from P, it's saying that from the horizontal at P up to T, right? That is 40. And then from the horizontal up to W, that is 54. So all of this is 54. Right, so they asked us to put in the distance 28, so we did that. We put in the angles 40 and 54. And then the last bit would be to put in the right angle, which would be right there, right? So anytime you have an intersection of a vertical and a horizontal line, you're supposed to have a right angle, right? So any intersection of a vertical and horizontal line makes a right angle. So that's how you'd get your marks for part 1. Okay, so if there are any questions, let me know. For those persons who have no questions, you can go ahead to part 2, just so that I give persons a little time to write off, as well as ask any questions. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask. Is everybody else hearing me? Yeah, sure. Let me tell this person, you probably have to leave and come back. All right, so going over it again. Right, so they ask us for the distance 28, and according to what we were told, PF is the 28 meters. For the person who asked me to go over it, are you seeing why that is the 28? Is that making sense? Okay, so that means A is good. Then they want the angles 40 and 54. But remember that those two angles, right, are angles of elevation, because that's what it says here. It says the angle of elevation of T and W from P are 40 and 54. So I'm saying that wherever you see the from, that's where you draw the angle, right? And I'm saying that because some persons will put the angles up here, which is absolutely incorrect. All right, so this is the from, so this is where the angle needs to be focused. So if it says the angle of elevation of T, it's saying that from the horizontal up to T, right? The horizontal up to T. So are you seeing why that's the 40? Okay, awesome. We're not finished because we have the 54 as well, right? And then from the horizontal up to the W, all of that is 54. And then the last bit, remember they said there's a vertical tower, there's a horizontal ground. So I'm saying once you have vertical and horizontal meeting, you get a right angle. Seeing everything clearly now? Okay, awesome. Okay, so then now, let me redraw. Okay, so this is what we're working with. So they asked us for the antenna, right, which is TW, which means that they just want a portion of something, right? So TW is just on top. So whenever you have these questions where they only want a part of something, right? You know, there's some subtraction that's gonna have to happen. So why am I saying that? Does everybody, so this part, just so that we can get critical thinking. Does everybody agree with me that what I have in red is F to W? Is everybody seeing that what I have in red is F to W? So guys, with these type of questions, you want to stay engaged. You don't want to fall asleep, no scrolling, no doing anything you're not supposed to do. With a question like this and just trigonometry on a whole, you can get very lost very quickly. Right? So ensure that you're following me every step of the way. So FW is the entire thing. How did I get 28? Because it said it in the question. Look on the right-hand side. It said that PF is equal to 28 meters. So I haven't calculated anything for this question yet. All I've done is write in the information that they gave us, but there's no calculation as yet. For the person who asked me, are you seeing it? Okay, awesome. Okay, guys, so we have FW being all of that. Now, suppose I take out TF. All right, suppose I take out TF. What is left over? So if the full thing was the red and I take out the green, what's left over? Right, so the full thing, right? So I'm saying the full thing is the red, right? That's the FW, which you guys said that you saw. No, I'm saying that suppose I erase or I take out the part that says TF. So from F to T, suppose I take out that part. How much of the red would be left over? From where to where? What would be left over would be TW. Is everybody seeing that what would be left over is TW? And this is good because TW, according to what they gave us in the instructions, right? It says a vertical antenna, TW is mounted on top. So since the next part of the question is asking for the length of the antenna, right? If I can find FW and I can find TF and subtract them, what I'll be left over with is TW. But this is very good news for us because TW is what the question is asking us to find. So rather than going to find the length of the antenna directly, what they want us to do is to think about, okay, how about you trying to find FW, find TF, and that will help you. And the reason they're asking us to do it that way is because to find FW, you can use your trig ratios. And to find TF, you can also use the trig ratios. Right? So to find FW, you're going to look at the big triangle. Right, where this is 54 and this is 28. To find TF, you're going to look at the small triangle. All right, so especially for those persons who have been here for the other parts of the trig marathon, right, it should be very easy for you to find the trig ratios, or find it using the trig ratios rather. Right, so I'm saying they're asking us to find the antenna on top. So whenever you see questions like this, where they're asking you for a piece of something, they don't expect you to find the piece directly, right? And this is for all questions. Just overall, even when you're doing volume, when you're doing area, all those things, if they're only asking you for a piece of something, they expect you, right? It's always the bigger, and maybe that will help, right? It's always the bigger shape minus the smaller shape. So of course, the bigger triangle, since we're dealing with triangles in this case, right? So as a hint, I'm breaking it down even more for those persons who maybe really don't like math. I'm saying that if you realize that what they're asking you for is a piece of something, always take the bigger shape and subtract the smaller shape from it. So we take the big triangle and we're going to subtract something relating to the smaller triangle. All right, so for those persons who were not here before, let me just maybe take this on the other page. Okay, so some persons are attempting, very good. Right, so remember when we did this, I said step one is always to label which side is the hypotenuse, which side is the opposite, which side is the adjacent. Right, so across from the right angle, always the hypotenuse. So this is the hypotenuse in both cases. Then that leaves you with two sides. One close, which is the adjacent, one across, which is the opposite. Same thing here, the one closest, adjacent, the one across, opposite. All right, so then you choose two sides. At all times, you're going to choose two sides. As for those persons who aren't able to do this, you can still watch back the other marathon videos, but this is the same procedure we've been doing, right? So whenever you have your triangles, and it's always your right angle triangles that you know that you're looking to do this with. So the first step is always to label the hypotenuse, the opposite, and the adjacent. Then you need two sides. You're always going to go with the side that has a measurement, and then the side that you are looking for. All right, so you want to go back to the trig ratios. So everybody should by now, but for those persons who weren't here before, maybe it's unfamiliar, right? So we use these where S is for sine X, right? Or let's put sine of the angle, right? So the sine of the angle is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So you see, if when you highlight the two sides that you want, you realize that you have opposite and hypotenuse, you're going to use sine. The cos of the angle is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And the tan of the angle is the opposite over the adjacent. So which one you use depends on what sides you have. So since I have opposite and adjacent, I'm going to use tan for both of them. So we're going to say that what? Tan 54 is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. And we're going to say that tan 40 is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. All right, then you're going to solve for FW. So I'll go over once I'm finished for those persons who didn't catch it. All right, so the 28, which is divided, when you take it to the opposite side, you will have to multiply. So everybody definitely needs to have your calculator. You can't be doing this topic without calculator. All right, so FW should be 38.54. So for the person who got the 56, the calculator is probably in the wrong unit. So tell me if that's what you had put in. If you're still getting it, then send me a picture of your calculator on WhatsApp and I'll tell you what's happening. All right, same thing, the 28, which is divided. When we take it across, we will multiply. All right, so we should be getting 23.49. And then when we subtract those, yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So the reason I use tan is because I have the opposite and the adjacent side. So that's why I did this up here, you know, to help you. So if you have opposite and adjacent, you have to use tan. And how do you, so you label the side. So first of all, for that person who's asking you, why did I use tan? Are you okay with labeling the triangle hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent? Do you know how to label the sides properly? If it's a no, that's also a place for us to start. All right, so you know how to label. So I'm saying at all times, you're gonna choose two sides. One of the sides you're choosing is the one with the measurement. So for sure, we have to choose the 28. So we know that is adjacent and something. Right, so I'm saying that you always choose the side with the measurement and the side that you are looking for. So are you seeing that those two sides end up being opposite and adjacent? Right, so then based on the rules up here, if it's opposite and adjacent, you have to use tan. If it was adjacent and hypotenuse, you'd have to use cos. If it was opposite and hypotenuse, you'd have to use sine. So seeing it now? Okay, awesome. All right, and then I'm gonna do it on the next page, but so TW is just gonna be 38.54 minus 23.49. Right, which is going to give you 15.05 or 15.1. Sorry for the noise, guys. All right, so 15, 15.1, 15.05, anything along the 15 point something, acceptable. All right, so remember from this page, we had said that what FW minus TF is going to give us TW. So 38.54 minus 23.49 is TW. So 15.05 meters is equal to TW. Okay, so if anybody needs me to go back to a particular page, if anybody is not clear on anything, now is the time to let me know. For those persons who are finished, however, start to look at the next one, which is January 2009. I also sent all of these questions to WhatsApp, so if you're able to look at it, if it's not showing clear on your screen. All right, then you can do that. Guys, please don't be shy. If there are any questions, I have no problem going over it. Do not leave these classes not understanding. Right? I'm not shouting at anybody, not telling anybody that they should know anything. I'm just here supporting you. Okay, going to give you guys a few seconds to just look at that. And then we're gonna start 2009. Okay, so it says the diagram below, not drawn to scale, is showing two straight wires. So that's LJ and NK. So we like to visualize as we are reading the information. So it's okay, what's that supposed to mean to me? Let's keep on reading. So it says it's supporting a vertical pole, right, which is MJ. All right, still not getting anywhere. Let's keep it going. It says LMN is a straight line on the horizontal plane. So they're just telling you that this goes straight across. right? They tell us that JML, so let's talk about that. Right, they tell us that JML is equal to 90. So those persons who weren't here before, when you see them quote the angle with 3 letters, right, the angle is at the letter in the middle. So this is saying the angle at M in between J and L. Right, just so that you know how to read everything. Same thing, so K and M equal 30. It's telling us that the angle is at the end. All right, so it's saying the angle at N in between K and M. They tell us that LJ is 13. That's on the diagram already. All right, that's this 13. They tell us that LM is 5. And that KN is 10. All right, so we just want to go through our questions as we lead up, just so that we have all the information. So the first thing they're asking us for is MK. Right, and to find MK, right, I would look at it and say, okay, well, MK looks like it's a part of the smaller triangle. But before we get there, right, I do want to point out something in terms of general knowledge. Okay, so if you notice, they only spoke about one of the right angles. So they told us that JML is a right angle, but guess what they didn't like outright say to us? They didn't outright say to us that this on the other side also is a right angle. Right, and that's a general rule. Right, so when you have a vertical and a horizontal line meeting, right, it forms a right angle on both sides. Right, so a vertical and horizontal line meeting makes a 90-degree angle on both sides. So they didn't need to tell us that the smaller triangle was a right angle triangle. We were supposed to know that because you say, well, if there is a right angle on this side, there must be a right angle on the other side. Can I get a yes? Is everybody seeing that? Is everybody appreciating that information? That sometimes, so I want you guys to be following me, because not all the time will the questions be straightforward. They won't always tell you everything. Some of the things they expect you to know. So hence I'm trying to walk you through what are the things they expect you to know. So this is a question that involves 2 right angle triangles, even though they only told us about 1 right angle. So guys, do not try to just study the questions themselves. It is not the case that whatever we do here, you're going to go on CXC and see the same exact question. They have never repeated a trig question. They repeated the type of question in terms of the knowledge used, but they don't repeat like the same exact question. So it's not as if you can study this and say, okay, man, I'm going to go on and I'm going to see the same thing and I'm going to just be able to write it down. They don't do that. Not for trigonometry. Right? So I want to make sure that you understand the reasoning behind the questions. Yeah, so for MK, you're going to use the smaller triangle. All right, so to find MK, all right, we know that this is 10. And they're asking us to find MK. So you're going to do the same ratio thing. So even especially for the person who was asking me how you know which one to use. So this is how you're going to practice. So the first thing we're going to do is to label the sides. Which one is the opposite? Which one is the hypotenuse? Which one is the adjacent? That's what you're going to do first. Then after that, you're going to choose two sides. You're going to choose the one with the measurement and the one that you are looking for. Then you're going to use the SOHCAHTOA and decide, am I using sine? Am I using cos? Am I using tan? All right, so this is going to be the hypotenuse. That then leaves two sides, the one closest, adjacent, the one across, opposite. So I'm always using the one with the measurement and the one that I am looking for. So if I am using opposite and hypotenuse, I have to use sine. So it is sine 30 is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. So sine 30 is equal to MK over 10. The 10 which is divided, when we take it across, we're going to multiply. All right, so when you put that in the calculator, you should be getting 5. So yes, for those persons who gave me that MK is 5, awesome job. Okay, when you guys have finished writing for MK, you understand and everything is good, give me a yes in the chat. This is now the time for those persons who are not understanding MK. Now is the time to stop me and ask me to go over it. Right, so declare, this is where you declare. And if you're a yes, give me a yes. If you're a no, give me a no. Okay, those who are responding are all saying yes. So I guess we're good to go. Okay, so then now we need JK. Let me redraw this. All right, so this question, very similar to what we did before. What do we realize? We realize they're only asking us for a piece of something. So whenever they're asking us for the piece, it means that you already are thinking it's something bigger minus something smaller is going to give me that piece. So the idea is that if I can find MJ, right, and then I can take out MK, what I will be left with is JK. All right, so if I can find this full thing, if I'm able to take out MK, the only thing that would be left is this top piece, which is JK. So it's literally just like the last question, just a little bit different, right? So same knowledge being applied, but a different question. So we don't know what MJ is, but you just found that MK is 5. So guys, even you writing this on the exam, you will at least get 1 out of those 3 marks. Because you're able to show some kind of reasoning and understanding. So please, whatever you know about the question, write it down on the paper. So what's really giving us the problem is to find MJ. Right, and of course, MJ is dealing with the bigger triangle, so we're going to see what we can come up with for that. So I'll put back that next page shortly. Everybody just follow the reasoning. All right, and we're trying to find MJ. So if you notice, we've been talking about trig ratios, but we only use the trig ratios if there is an angle involved, right? So we only use the trig ratios, that's SOHCAHTOA, if 1, there's a right angle triangle, and 2, there is an angle involved. But I've not seen any angles in that big triangle, right? So if it is a right angle triangle, but there is no angle, you should use Pythagoras theorem. All right, and we had spoken about that, but I'll go over it. So again, I'm trying to tell you how to think about the questions. Overall, we're dealing with right angle triangles. Immediately that says to me, I'm always using either Pythag or my trig ratios. For right angle triangles, we're not using sine and cosine rule. Only Pythagoras' theorem, my trig ratios. So, okay, fine, let's go with that. The first one had an angle, so I know I was thinking trig ratio for sure. This one, however, with the big triangle, there's no angle. I don't know anything about any angle. Right? And we usually say that we don't count the right angle as an angle. We're talking about in one of the other areas. All right? So I don't know this and I don't know that. So at that point, that is what signals to you that you should use Pythagoras' theorem. And again, guys, I'm trying to walk you through how to think about the questions because I will not be in the exam with you. So I have to teach you how to think through and know what to use. So those persons who need to make note of that, go ahead, and then we're going to actually work it. All right, so everybody just focus right quickly. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, are you sure now? I know you're saying you weren't sure, but based on my explanation now, would you be confident the next time around to know that that's what you should do? Yeah, awesome. Right, guys, so Pythagoras' theorem says that the hypotenuse squared is equal to the sum of the other two sides squared. So we already know this is the hypotenuse. All right, and if you want, you can call this side 1 and side 2. All right, so we're saying that 13 squared is equal to, let's put MJ. Doesn't matter if you put JM or MJ, but I just want it to be consistent. Because I think that's what I put around here. Yeah. All right, MJ squared plus 5 squared. So 13 squared is not 13 times 2. 13 squared, all right, is not 13 times 2. 13 squared is 13 times 13. Same thing for 5 squared. So 169 is equal to MJ squared plus 25. Then the 25, which is added, when you subtract, all right, we're going to get 144 is equal to MJ squared. But we're not solving for MJ squared, right? We're solving for MJ. Maybe I can put this at the top here instead. Yes, I'll put a little note for it at the top. Okay, guys, so whenever you're solving your equations, right, if you want to get rid of the square, you have to square root the opposite side. Right? So just like how the opposite of addition, subtraction, opposite of subtraction, addition, opposite of multiplication is division, opposite of division is multiplication, the opposite of the square is the square root. Right? So using Pythagoras theorem, you should be able to do that to find that MJ is 12. However, that's not your final answer, right? Because remember, they don't want MJ. What they want is JK. So I'm going to put it on the other page, just giving persons a moment to write, but to complete it for those persons who are ahead, right? Remember, we said it's MJ minus MK gives us JK. So it would be 12 minus the 5 you found. So the final answer is actually 7. All right, so just to make sure that everybody knows how to use Pythagoras theorem, I'm going to do a little bonus question. All right, just to make sure everybody knows how to do that. If you could have your formula as 13 squared I would say I wouldn't want you to put the 5 plus x because, I mean, you can, but I feel as if unless you are very, very comfortable with math, you're probably not going to get the right answer. But if you worked it and you're able to get the final answer 7, so when you do that, you wouldn't have to do any subtraction. You would have just found x, which is JK directly. So I don't know. It depends on what your math skills look like. If you're very good and you could get the 7, awesome. If not, I would say don't put 5 plus x. So it's right, but it's probably not doing what you think it's doing. Oh, okay. All right, well then, yeah, you're good to go. Yeah, no problem at all. Okay, so just as a bonus, all right, what if I gave you this and told you to find PR? What is PR? I want you guys to go ahead and try. What is PR? right? So what is PR? If you got that and you were asked to find PR. So you have a right angle triangle with no angles. So you know you have to use Pythagoras' theorem. So it's the hypotenuse squared is equal to the sum of the other two sides squared. Again, guys, maybe you're going into a timed exam. Things like that should not take you so long. I guess you have to work on your speed. You don't want to go into the exam and not be able to finish. So Pythagoras' theorem says the hypotenuse squared is equal to the sum of the other two sides squared. Right, so PR squared is equal to 10 squared plus 9 squared. Right, so it's 100 plus 81. So PR squared is equal to 181. And to get rid of the square, you have to square root the other side. So yes, you should be getting, right, 13.45. You guys have to learn how to do these things. So if anybody still not understanding how to do Pythagoras' theorem, go ahead and ask. So with this one, right, we had the hypotenuse and we have to find the side. But with this one, we have two sides and we need to find the hypotenuse. So the formula stays the same. What is missing can be different. All right, so those persons who are finished, go ahead and start to look at the next question, which is May 2008. All right, so it says in the diagram not drawn to scale, GH is a vertical pole. So we know that this is right here. Right, and it's standing on a horizontal plane. Right, and H, J, and K are on that horizontal plane. So already, without them telling us anything, because there is a vertical line, meaning meeting a horizontal line, we already know that that is a right angle. right? So I'll put in my right angle. It says that GH is 12. And then it says the angles of elevation of the top of the pole G, right? So now they're telling us that the angles of elevation of G from J right? And the angle of elevation of G from K, right, is 32 and 27 respectively, right? So it means that the J, which is first, goes with the 32, and the K, which is after, goes with the 27. So from J means that the angle is at the J. So it needs to go from the horizontal up to G, so that's the 32. And then it needs, the next one is at the K, from the horizontal up to K. So guys, you have to be able to put these things in the right places. If you don't put them in the right places, you're going to get all of the calculations incorrect. So easily we get our 1 mark. So we copy the diagram and we put in the angles of elevation. So the next thing they want you to do is to calculate to 1 decimal place the length of HJ. Now for me, HJ, right, looks like it's a part of that first triangle with the 32. So I don't want to change the page yet. All right, but for those persons who are willing to try, right, you have the 32, you have the 12, and you're supposed to find HJ. Of course, we know this is a right angle triangle for the reason that we said before. So we have an angle, and it's a right angle triangle. You know you're supposed to be using your trig ratios. So you're going to label it hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent. And then you're going to think about what sides you need. You need the one with the measurement and the one that you're looking for. So I'll give persons like a minute to just try that. I'd love for you guys to kind of see what you come up with on your own. Again, if there's any questions about why anything is anywhere specific, go ahead and ask. All right, so I'm pulling out the smaller triangle. All right, so we know this is the hypotenuse. And that leaves 2 sides. So that's the adjacent. That's the opposite. So for sure, using opposite. And they've asked me to find HJ, so that is adjacent. Right, so if it's opposite and adjacent, we are using tan. So tan 32 is equal to opposite over adjacent. So tan 32 is equal to 12 over HJ. So please note, guys, what you're looking for doesn't always have to be up the top. So some of you who came today, I know you probably weren't, well, not probably, you wouldn't have been here when I showed them how to solve this. So if you're really not good at solving equations, then you probably had a problem with this. Right, so the idea is that the HJ, since that's what we're solving for and it's in the denominator, we're gonna take it across, we're going to multiply. Right, so that way it's no longer in the denominator. So that's good. Then the tan 32, which is multiplied, when you take it across, you will divide. So that's how you solve for something like that. All right, so you should be getting 19.2, and we would put meters. All right, so just as a bonus, all right, so let's say you're solving 4 is equal to 8 over x. All right, and we say solve for x. All right, the x which is divided, and I've seen a question like this on CXC, by the way. All right, you have the x, and the 4. When you take it across, you would divide. So your answer for this would be x equal 2. All right, so that's a bonus for you to see just what's the foundation math that you should have known in order to be able to do something like that. All right, so if you want, you can take it off. So for the length of JK, similar to what we've been doing with the whole subtraction. So that's your hint. All right, so while I wait on the others to ask me any questions, all right, you have HK, that's the full thing. All right, and then you're going to take out HJ. And that will leave you with, it's the same thing, it's just that now it's on the side versus on the vertical. All right, so HK minus HJ is going to leave you with JK. So for those persons who are actually trying, you can move ahead and actually try while I wait on the others. All right, so since we're approaching the end of today's session, can I get some yeses in the chat? Is everybody still awake? Is everybody still following? Is everybody still here? Are we not scrolling? Are we paying attention? Are we fully engaged? Can I get some yeses, guys? Engage, wake yourself up, get it together. Is everybody here? Okay, awesome. So get a yes from everybody. What? Right, I'm actually, so after today's class, guys, based on what we did before, for sure, Any question you get with any type of Pythagoras theorem, trig ratios, angles of elevation and depression, if you use the videos that we've done, you for sure should be able to do them. Right, on Sunday, because I don't want to mix the information too much, and right, so we're going to wait until Sunday, and then we're going to fully, so Sunday, and not, so again, not touching any more of the right angle triangles. As of Sunday, we're going to focus on the triangles that are non-right angle, and what do we do for those, right? Which is where I said you're going to use the sine rule and the cosine rule. So those are the other sets of questions that are in the booklet. Okay, so for part B, right, we said that HK minus HJ is equal to JK. Right, we don't know HK, but we just found that HJ is 19.2. So again, guys, please ensure, as another exam strategy, ensure you're writing out your steps. All of these things, the final answer only gives you 1 mark. So if somebody goes on that exam, they don't show any working, they don't show any steps, you can still end up failing because you don't get enough marks, because all you're doing is writing down answers. Please, I don't know what it is with students these days. You guys don't like to show working. Whatever rough working you do on whatever paper, instead do it on the paper that's in front of you. At least when they see it, they can see what you were trying, see where you made your mistake, and at that point, they're able to actually give you marks. All right, so then I'm going to look at HK, which is the bigger triangle. All right, so again, you want to label, you have the hypotenuse. In this case, what was the angle? It was 27. All right, so we have the opposite, the adjacent. Again, we know the opposite, looking for the adjacent, so we're going to use tan. So tan 27 is the opposite. Is it over the adjacent? So tan 27 is 12 over HK. The HK, which is divided, going to take it across. We'll multiply tan 27, which is multiplied. Going to take it across. We will divide. So when you put that into your calculator, you should be getting 23.6. Right. And since it was HK minus HJ, All right, we're gonna have 23.6 minus 19.2. Let me see. All right, which should be giving us 4.4. Yeah, 4.3, 4.4, anywhere around that is workable. All right, guys, so once you're finished writing, if you have no further questions, you are free to go. All right, so if you have no further questions, you're free to go. Where did they, oh no, it's not 26, sorry, 23.6, I put the wrong thing. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, bye for those who are leaving. Yeah, it was 23.6, I put the wrong thing.